everybody to the Church Kids podcast. Thanks everybody for being here. My name's Alex Langham, and this is episode number 2 of Church Kids Sessions. I am happy to be here with a good friend of mine, John Kraft. Happy you're here with us. Thanks for coming on the podcast today, man.
Thank you for letting me.
Absolutely. So here at Church Kids, we are creating community and conversation through sharing stories. And this is, like I said, the second installment of Church Kids Sessions. And this is a conversational podcast, more so than the regular episodes that we normally do on the podcast with it's just being me. Here we really get to explore some things and kind of make a table. No pun intended, we're at a literal table here, but really just get to talk about some things that matter. And the Sessions episodes are every third Monday of the month. You can look out for those. And then the regular episodes are every first Monday of the month. So stay in tune for those. And make sure you're subscribing, sharing, rating, and reviewing Church Kids. Thank you so much for watching. You can also visit us at churchkids.net, and you can view the blog posts on there and other things. We would love for you to get involved and join the conversation and be a part of the Church Kids community. John, man, thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be talking about creativity in the church, but I want John to tell us a little bit about his background, and then we'll kind of get into it together.
Okay, so I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, Roll Tide, and I'm a photographer. I'm a barista. I'm a preacher.
He's
as well.
He's the barista, but I'm making the coffee.
He's making the coffee, but I'm the barista. I offered, but he wouldn't let me do it.
Just an honor thing, man. Just trying to serve the guest here.
Just trying to honor me. I get it. So I grew up in Alabama. I moved to Boston about, 5 months ago now?
Yeah, so what?
In October 10th.
2017, right?
Yes.
Yes, October of 2017, okay.
Yep. And just been living life, trying to crush it the best I know how.
Right.
And now I'm involved in Hillsong Boston.
Yeah.
And loving it.
So Hillsong Boston just recently launched, right? And you're a part of. So what do you do at Hillsong?
So I lead the crew team, and then I just assist one of our pastors, Pastor Steve, on Sunday mornings. Just whatever he needs, I try to be the guy that can do anything for him.
Right.
And during service, I do anything. I may be sitting on the front row. I may be doing host in the back, or cleaning the bathroom, or whatever's needed at the moment. Is where I'm at, and I love it.
That's awesome, man. And I don't know if you mentioned or not, but about Portrait Boston and Portrait Birmingham.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So what they are and how they came about.
Okay, so when I started photography about a little over a year ago, I was still in Birmingham, and I really had a passion for just connecting people more so than photography itself. And I noticed that I was connecting with a lot of models, and I was connecting with a lot of photographers, but the two didn't know each other. So I wanted to be the bridge for the photographers and models. I wanted to be the connection between the both of them. And so I just started a feature page called Portrait BHM.
It's on Instagram.
On Instagram.
Yeah.
And just started featuring people. Didn't ask, didn't care. Just said, you know what, they want to be featured. I know they do. So
yeah. Or at least really hoped they did.
Yeah, exactly. Created a hashtag for it, Portrait BHM, and just started branding it and posting every single day, and tried to make it as consistent as possible. And within a year, it is now a little over a year. It is now over 2,000 followers. We have a monthly meetup, which, if you don't know what a meetup is, it's as simple as you can get. It's photographers, models meet at one area of your city, and you literally just take photos of each other. Some people think it's weird, but we creatives think that it's cool. And so if a creative says it's cool, it's probably actually not cool, but we love it. And so we do that once a month. It's about 60 people on average now.
Wow, yeah. And you're doing that in Birmingham and in Boston.
Yeah, so now I do it in Boston as well.
Okay.
So I have someone who runs the portrait page of Birmingham, and I have and then I run Boston's page, and so the hope and goal is to create communities in both cities, have meetups on the same exact day, once a month.
Wow. That's really cool.
And then eventually do to add another city. So like maybe like connect with someone in Seattle, or in Houston, or anywhere around the country, and say, hey, this is what we do, and we want you to host meetups for us once a month. We want you to create a page for us, and then through that create unity across the entire country in the photo community. There's a lot of strife going on right now in the photo community with sexual exploitation and models coming out that they've been sexually harassed or aggravated.
Is this kind of up the alley of the Me Too movement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
okay. Talk to me more about that.
And so where that's going is, so what that means is that what we want to do is create a safe space for models and photographers to come together and meet each other to realize that while there are some people in the community that are looking to harm others, we in the Portrait BHM, Portrait Boston world, that is our last intention. In fact, we're looking to create the safest space possible to create art and create what you want to create. And I personally, I use it as a ministry tool. Just recently, I hosted my first one in Boston, and was just able to talk to a lot of people about church and about Jesus. In fact, like even invited some people to church and got some yeses, got some no's. And it's just the life of ministry. But I was really happy to just be able to have multiple conversations about why in the world I'm in Boston.
Yeah.
From Birmingham. So, yeah.
So we're going to get into some rapid fire kind of questions just about creativity and your views kind of on it. And we're going to get in depth in a little bit, but I wanted to start with some important questions relating to a little bit of your taste. And I know immediately the answer to the first question because we'll let you see. So my first question is, who is your favorite musical artist?
All right, so I thought about answering this in a way that he didn't expect, but I'm wearing the shirt. Laney stands for LA, New York.
Totally not
Paul
planned
Klein,
for us both to wear.
Yeah, band shirts.
Band shirts.
But Paul Klein, if you ever hear this, just know that I do have a man crush on you, and it's totally the normalest thing anyone can ever do. So, yeah, Paul Klein's the man.
Okay.
So,
okay.
It's just hard to know. Other than that, it'd be John Bellion.
Okay, wow. Dude, I really like John Bellion. I'm not as big of a Laney fan, but I really do like John Bellion. Okay, so
thank you for the coffee.
You're welcome, man. Well, what's your favorite film of all time?
Favorite film of all time. This one's harder. I have to say Forrest Gump.
Okay.
Because
I'm with you there. Tom Hanks is brilliant.
It's a 2.5-hour movie. Tom Hanks. The man is a true American legend.
Yes.
Like, he's fictional, but he met so many presidents. He stopped scandals. He outed people. Not only that, he was a war hero.
He's like an American legend.
He was a ping pong champion. Like,
right.
He did it all. And so in my mind, it's like the first like epic movie where there's just every scene is just a new part of his life.
Right.
And yeah.
I believe it's an Academy Award winner as well.
Yeah.
Really great movie.
Other than that, Wedding Crashers.
My favorite movie is Dark Knight.
Dark Knight, okay. Love that, yeah.
Dude, Heath Ledger's performance.
Batman, yeah.
Just incredible.
Yeah. You were very big into acting for a long time.
That's right.
So.
That's right. And I mean, he was always an inspiration to me. Heath Ledger was really just a phenomenal actor. Definitely when I was acting. All right, who is your inspiration for photography?
For photography,
I don't have an answer for this one.
Okay, so this is kind of different. What inspired me originally was a photographer. His name's Zek.Lee. on Instagram. He's a photographer in New York, and soon to be in LA. He initially inspired me to like just make my Instagram look better. I wanted the like urban feel and vibe with a model in front of all of it. My start to photography was kind of like just taking landscapes, urban, like photos of like iPhone photos of like architecture in downtown areas with an interesting angle that no one had seen before, and he just kind of inspired me to like add a model in front of that. Now a lot of it is like just Vogue magazine, editorial work. I have a friend in Las Vegas, Daquan. He's a huge inspiration. Nicole, if you're probably not going to hear this, maybe you will. I don't know how to say her last name. Solero. Yeah. Anyways, in Orlando, she's a huge inspiration. And then Zachary Lung, he's in between LA and New York. He in fact I think started the like hand in front of the face with the shadow casting.
Oh, okay.
I think he started the trend.
Oh,
so
he was kind of ahead of the curve.
Yeah, he's always ahead of the curve.
That's
on
really
any
cool.
Posing, fashion, editorial work. So,
what is a piece of art that has spoken to you? And I guess not necessarily two-dimensional. I mean, that's obviously in play here as well. But just what art has really spoken to you in your lifetime, or encouraged you to continue to be a creative and really lean into the creative heart that God designed within you?
This is kind of weird because I'm not necessarily inspired by like art, like traditional art. I get inspired when I'm like walking down the street and like see a street sign or a trash can in like a weird area. Some of my best shoots were like just having a model stand on top of a trash can and like look at the sky, and just because it felt raw and original.
One thing I actually love that I'll say and kind of encourage you with here is one thing that I love about your photography, and knowing you as well as I know you, it says a lot about your character as well, is you are so consistent to take something that should be dirty and avoidable and make it so approachable and wanted. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's like a lot of gospel message in that. And we're going to talk more about this, but even if you have like a small tidbit to say, like, how do you let your photography, not pictures of Jesus himself or pictures of church, but pictures of people, pictures of the streets, how is the gospel being portrayed through that? Are you using that as mission work at all? Like, what does photography do for your soul as a Christian? What does photography do for you?
For me, I'd say photography for me just really helps me to like connect with people. You know, like it just helps me see like what's going on in the real world. You know, in ministry, it's so easy to just get consumed with what's going on in the church.
Yeah.
With what's going, like with what preacher said what, or where your favorite speaker is speaking at, or the next big conference, stuff like that. And for the last year, I'm just like I just did practical things. Like I just unfollowed a lot of preachers. I unfollowed a lot of like churches and ministries, and just made my social media about connecting with people that weren't in church. And I'd say I got some pushback from it from people in church, but at the end of the day, I was able to go on these shoots with 1 or 2 people or even 5 people, and that weren't in church. Maybe one of them was in church, the others were not, and they always would ask me questions about what I do, why I'm in church, because I mean it's just like there's not a lot of people in the industry of photography and modeling that are necessarily sold out to church. They may go.
Or creativity in general.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it extended to Hollywood and the music industry.
Especially in Hollywood. And it's just not a thing that a lot of people talk about.
Yeah.
They may go, but they just don't promote it.
Yeah.
So I just realized that like if I could connect with those people through social media and talk and like just be real with them while I'm on set, while we're shooting together, and if I can like find favor with them, then the next thing anything else that I do, if I post anything about church, they're gonna see it and they're gonna be interested in it.
Yeah.
I found that a lot, especially in Boston, that anytime I've like posted something about me being in church, they're like, whoa, this is interesting. Like, this is a guy who creates some really good content, and he's really chill, yet he's in church. I don't know anyone like that.
Yeah.
And it's just opened a lot of conversations.
And I think maybe even what you mean, just because, and I'm going to put John's Instagram handle at some point beginning, and we'll see it at some point here, but what people will probably notice about like your feed and your photography is you don't put some of the modest boxes around photography that a traditional church view may want you to. And me and you have had kind of in-depth conversations about this, but like, do you find that your ability to just create photography that speaks to people in general and not necessarily have kind of drawbacks on it, how does that help you? How does that hurt you? And just kind of where are you on that?
I think it helps me in the sense that, like I said, I get to connect with these people who aren't in church at all.
It breaks down some barriers.
It breaks down a lot of barriers. Just like I've just been able to find I'll say this, when I started in photography, I remember I was driving on the interstate in Birmingham. I was getting off the exit to go to my house, and I just remember saying, "Hey, God, give me favor in the photo community of Birmingham. Give me favor with photographers and models, and help me to use it to give you glory." And I think because I pray prayers like that wherever I go, He honors it. And I think when you live an honorable life that matches that says, I want favor with these people, I want to serve these people, I want these people to know Jesus, He's going to give you that favor. And so even like my hashtag Misfits Never Die, even now people still ask like, hey, what is this thing you hashtag all the time? What's Misfits Never Die? Especially when I was in Birmingham, because I had it tattooed on my arm, you know.
Yeah.
And then I also had it on my car as well. Had a decal on the back window, and so people would see it and they'd think of it, they'd be reminded, and they'd ask. And I was just able to say, at the end of the day, what it means ultimately is that I have eternal life, and I was able to explain that a misfit is somebody who lives differently. That God calls Christians to live differently in the world, so Christians are therefore misfits in the world. They are supposed to be different, and so I just started owning the fact that I'm never going to be the same as the world, and I shouldn't want to be. So I'm just going to embrace the fact that I'm different, and I'm going to call myself a misfit.
Yeah. And
the never die part just came through, and I realized, like, hey, I have eternal life. I'm a soul with a body, and I shouldn't fear death. I shouldn't fear fear itself. I shouldn't. And it's also just a motto to live boldly, to live courageously, to go headfirst into any battle or fight that you see coming your way.
Right.
And so I've just been able to find a way to for people connect with it somehow, for some reason. I've always found that people have connected with it and said, "Oh yeah, that's really cool. That's really inspiring."
And for Misfits Never Die, I know you've done some kind of like design and clothing work, or had some people do that for you.
Yeah.
What would you say? And I think I know the answer, and I hope that we can talk more about them if I do know the answer. Who would be your inspiration when it comes to fashion?
Definitely, Fear of God.
Jerry Lorenzo. Great, because he was who I thought you were going to say.
Jerry Lorenzo. He actually gets a lot of pushback as well.
I see a lot of comparison between him and fashion and you in photography, and not having to blatantly do like ministry and blatantly. He's breaking down barriers intentionally, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Talk to me more about like your thoughts on him, and maybe if you see any comparisons. Or...
I would never want to compare myself to Jerry. Jerry Lorenzo. I'm
Jerry. First name basis.
Jerry. First name basis. You're the man, and you really inspire me a lot. So you'll never. You're gonna see this one day. I'm speaking it in faith. So. No, I would. He gets a lot of pushback from the fashion community because people feel that he's too simple in his style, or that he cops other people's style or creativity,
and yet he is selling out every single line.
And then he gets pushback from Christians because. While his brand is called Fear of God, and his lookbook videos are obviously like faith-based, the visuals aren't necessarily faith-based. They don't look like something you would see in church, and yet he's in church. He's connected to all these pastors, and I just think that it's a testament that I think Pastor Carl Lentz said it the best in an interview with Vice, that we aren't going to let culture hustle us. We're going to hustle culture.
Wow. I've never heard that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and so it's just it's super easy to think, oh, they connect with culture, so they've sold out.
Yes.
And I just don't think that's it. I think we connect so that we can connect you to someone who's better than us.
Culture sold out.
Yeah, and I think if we connect with culture, just say, hey, we relate to you on this. This is where we used to be at.
Yeah.
And this is where God's taken us. Then I think the world is going to be a better place because of that.
Right.
So
I was actually reading today in Rich Wilkerson Jr.'s new book, Friend of Sinners. And he quotes somebody, I can't think of the quote, but some great theologian, I think it's Tim Keller actually, says somebody asked him why somebody wasn't, he was doing missions work in an African tribe, and an individual wasn't wearing pants to this meeting, and I guess he had some kind of scholars and people of kind of religiosity and in the church world with him, and one of them approached him after and was like, that is so offensive that this man's not wearing pants. Mind you, this is an African tribe, but he's still he should be wearing something to hear and receive God's word. And I think Tim Keller said something to the tune of, I don't want to minimize Jesus to a pair of pants.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that's a huge push right now. And so, for instance, with Jerry Lorenzo, we're seeing him connect with Kendrick Lamar, Jay-Z, the Migos. We are seeing him break down barriers and get into connection and conversation with people that outside of intentionally breaking down the barriers in his fashion and in his line of work. If he hadn't been intentional about that, those are relationships that he would have never formed. Those are people that he would have never been able to speak life into.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of proving the point that creativity has a place in the church and in the mission and the message of God. I actually, this is kind of one of the first more discussion questions, is this: should there be creative limitations when you are producing content for the church. Now, one thing I know about you is that you don't necessarily produce content for a church.
Yeah.
You produce content for yourself, and let's talk a little bit about that too. Why, if at all, do you refrain from kind of like producing content for the church? Or if you do produce content for the church, is it different than what you're producing? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've created. I think the reason I stay away from creating content for the church, and what I mean by for the church is stuff like service photos,
Yeah.
or video recaps about of a service, stuff like that. It's just because that when I started, friends of mine in ministry found out that, hey, this friend of mine has a camera. He's a photographer now, and so I'm just going to ask him to do this for me for free. And so that was a big pushback, is that people in ministry wanted me to work for free when that wasn't the expectation in the secular world. There was I feel like a lot of people in ministry just think, oh yeah, he'll do it for free because he loves Jesus and we're friends. When in fact, and that's a big thing in photography right now, especially the portrait world, is that so many people get asked to do photos for free, and what people don't realize is that you're not just paying for a guy with a camera, you're paying for 2 hours of time of their day, then you're paying for around 4 hours of editing, probably more. You're paying for them paying for Lightroom or Photoshop. You're paying for whatever software editing that they use. You're paying if it's a studio setup. You're helping pay for the studio. You're helping pay for the lighting, the electricity.
Yeah.
And then you're also just helping pay for
labor and their talent,
food on the table.
Yeah.
And so I think some church people don't get that.
Mm.
And also I was bored with it. I did not enjoy taking photos of a service. And I wanted to enjoy what I was doing. I didn't want to dread or feel like I was enduring church because I was taking photos of church.
Right.
So, and I'm also I'm a connector. I love connecting with people, and so if I have a camera in my face at a church service, I feel like I'm trapped. I feel like I can't connect or talk with anyone.
Right.
Because my job is to take photos.
So what is your experience with the local church? I know that you were a youth pastor for some time.
Yeah.
But when did you get saved? What did your journey with Jesus look like? When did you kind of realize that your creative spirit had a role to play in that? Talk to me a little bit about your history.
I got saved in 9th grade. I was 14 at the time. And started preaching when I was 16. Pretty much grew up in church my entire life, off and on, mainly Wednesday nights. My mom worked a lot on Sundays, and so Wednesday nights was kind of my time to be able to go to church. And I think I finally caught on to what it was all about in high school, and just sold out to it. And I never felt creative in high school or college, but I wanted to be creative. But at the time, in my mind, creativity was playing music or acting or something along that line. And so for me, what I decided that was, for my sermons, I was going to be as creative as possible. So I started seeing writing sermons as a work of art, and instead of just writing out, elaborations about the Bible, I wanted it to be interactive and engaging, from everything from how I flow into a story or transition back into the text, or creating the text into a story itself so that people connect with it. That was my I guess, art for a long time. I tried to make that was my lane of creativity.
And I think at one point, maybe this is for you, but at least for me, I realized at some point in my journey that, I mean, obviously I grew up acting and that was like kind of my outlet for creativity, but I realized at some point that there's just a creative character within me, and I think within all of us, maybe not everybody, some people are really good with logistics and finances and numbers, but I think within all of us there's a shred of a creative heart, because, I mean, we were created by an author and a creator, God, and I think that echoes within our spirit that we, as a result, are just creative people.
Yeah.
And whether that manifests in a talent or a skill, I think that we were meant to be problem solvers, to be people who are not doing things the same way that everybody else does them, and just having an original spirit about us. Do you find that that's...
Yeah. I connect a lot with the Message version of the Bible.
Right.
When I want to preach, it kind of even helps me with my creativity in preaching messages. And so a passage I've always loved in the Message is Galatians 6. I'm just going to read it. But 4-5 it says, make a careful exploration of who you are and the work you have been given, and then sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. Each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can do with your own life.
Wow.
And so I've just I've connected with that when I guess really started this journey a little over a year ago of trying to, I guess, be an official creative through the lane of photography. Is that I'm just going to sink myself into it. Whatever I do, I'm just going to try and do it as creatively and as best as I can. And if it's not enough, it's not enough. But hopefully it is.
Yeah.
You know. But I'm gonna do me. And I think that when I decided to just let go of the like straining for creativity, trying to grasp it, is when I became the most creative.
Wow.
And
so you kind of walked into your best product creatively that you would say, maybe your best photos or your best, really the best season of your life creatively after you stopped trying to be creative.
Yeah.
And you just kind of lived up to your creative spirit. Wow.
Exactly.
That's a really strong thought. One question that I definitely want to ask and talk a little bit about is what role does and should, two different questions, what role does creativity play in the church now, and what role should creativity play in the church, and what should creativity in the church look like?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to see? I mean, we certainly don't have all the answers, but just starting a conversation about that.
I would say creativity plays a role in every aspect of ministry. That's one thing that I love about my church, even your church, or Church of the Highlands, or Zoe. In LA, VU is one of the most creative churches.
Brilliant church, yeah.
On the planet. Churches like ours, I would say, are some of the most creative out there, because they get that culture just in certain areas, especially in certain areas of America, they just don't care about religion in general, especially where we live.
Yeah.
Especially where we live, like I would say, like not only is Boston number 2 least biblically minded in the country, I would just say it's like least religion minded. Like it's just liberal. Liberal minded to the sense of whatever you want, whatever you feel is good.
And me and you were actually talking about this the other day. There's actually there are some pieces of that I love about living here. That there's a heavy respect when it comes to like, if this is what you believe, I really respect that according to everybody. And obviously, like I identify with that. Like I'm going to respect you no matter who you are, what you believe.
Yeah.
And I love that about here. But at the same time, there is a mutual. There should be. We don't even need to have conversations about where, like, what you should see for my life or anything like that.
Yeah.
People just don't like to talk about it. It's like almost like a code of silence when
Yeah.
it comes to like religion. Like, I'm gonna respect you and let you do you, and
Just
you
don't
keep your
talk
mouth
about my
shut
life.
about
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, I would say creativity plays a big role. That's like I said, like not just having a really good photographer or videographer for your service, but like having people on the platform that speak in a creative way, that are engaging.
Yes.
Um,
I
and then-
could not agree more.
Yeah.
You're talking about it in a church service,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And or people or making your welcome lounge the most inviting and fun place to hang out
Mhm.
before or after service. Get creative with it. One thing I love when I walk into my church is that there are LED lights just everywhere, and there's pub tables and there's plants and there's people hanging out. Like, it's a fun environment. There's people walking around with candy and hot chocolate.
And they've created at Hillsong a relatable environment too, an environment that anybody from any walk of life could walk into and be like, this feels like the mall on a Saturday.
Yeah.
This feels like I don't know, going to like an event at like my kid's school.
Yeah.
Like it's just inviting and something that anybody could relate with without any strings attached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would even say like this is something Zoe does really well. They have people who are like hand pouring coffee, like you just did with Chemex. They have people doing that every Sunday.
Yeah.
And so it's not just like, oh, there's coffee over there for free.
It's like excellent.
But there's hand poured like craft coffee there. It's made for you on the spot.
Yeah.
You get to watch it. And so you get to like watch people be creative in that vein, and it's gonna sound weird, but like you get to, I guess, drink their creativity. You get to take it in.
Yeah.
That's
such a great metaphor
too. It's a tangible thing that you get to hold.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but just I learned this at Church of the Highlands is that everywhere you go, there should be music. So anywhere that has the potential to be a dead space, fill it with music.
Yes.
And people are going to hang out there.
There's something that I learned because I grew up in Orlando from Disney.
Yeah.
Disney does an amazing job of creating a magical environment that I think the church has every opportunity to do, is to create an environment where, man, people feel special. There's just something about Sunday morning where I go and there's just nothing like it, man. The people create something magical, and I think that that's like stuff that the church should strive for.
Yeah.
One other thing I love about creativity in the church is it creates so many avenues for people to serve that were not otherwise there. I mean, like outside of the traditional teams, worship team and production and AV, and there are so many opportunities. Oh, you're good at t-shirt design? We're starting a merch line. You're good at coffee? We're starting a coffee bar. You're good at drawing? Well, we're going to paint a mural for there are so many avenues. It's almost as if God has created us to have a part to play, and it's just about the church opening up to let people play their part. And I love that.
And I would say that, like, the second part of your question, where is the church lacking in creativity? I think there's certain churches that aren't lacking in creativity, but there's just a lot of churches that haven't caught on, or that are too stubborn to do it.
Okay.
I've gone to some churches and it's like they're not willing to create a space for people.
Yes.
And that's the part that I think will drive someone away.
So as a creative, I'm sure that you've experienced some obstacles in church, but if you were to speak to the church at large and say, from a creative to the church, these are some of the obstacles that I wish weren't in the way, or these are some of the obstacles that I've faced to letting my creative expression be used, not just by the church, but like as a member of the kingdom of God. These are the blockades that I've run into that maybe other Christians put up for you, or that church has put up for you. What are some of the obstacles that you want to bring to light as a creative in the church or as a follower of Christ?
Yeah. I'd say one, like I had a great conversation about this with another creative in Boston who's also in the church and loves Jesus. And he said it really well, is that pastors and people in ministry always, whenever they have a whenever they feel they need to start a conversation with a creative, and we'll just in this conversation, we're just going to say a photographer who shoots models. Whenever they feel the need to have a conversation with them about, say, their social media, they always start the conversation with, "Hey, man, I get it. You're creative. You're creative. You want to create these concepts. You want to do this and that, and we just want you to be careful with what you post, stuff like that." And he said it really well, is that they don't get it. Like, they don't understand it. Like, they're like, because they're not a photographer. Like, they don't have the same mindset that a photographer has when they're on the shoot. And I would also just say, like I've had a lot of Christians in general just like look at my Instagram and assume that that because I'm supposed to be in church, but I mainly shoot women, that what I'm doing is inappropriate. And I think,
but there's no context for what.
There's no context.
Right.
They don't see the behind the scenes. They don't see the conversations I had with them about Jesus or about church. They don't see that I invited them to church. They don't see any of that. So I would say, like, just don't assume. Don't assume that you know what that photographer's doing. Even if there's even if you just heard a story about another photographer who is doing what you're thinking someone else is doing, like ask, find out the context, hear their story, and that's what I love about this, is that like you're asking people's stories, you're getting them to tell you their story and give you context on their life, and I think when you do that, it just it creates a deeper respect for the person, but it helps you to empathize with that person and to know why they do what they do, or what they struggle with, or and I hate it too, because I would say that for me, like with photography, shooting mostly women models, that like it is in fact given me a deeper respect for females, and even now, like with a lot of the stuff coming out with the Me Too movement,
Time's Up movement,
and Time's Up, stuff like that in Hollywood and in the photo,
every industry,
video industry.
Yeah.
It's bringing awareness. It's really hard to not see it, to not respect it. If I met a person who didn't respect the Me Too movement, I'd be shocked.
And part of what I enjoy about your photography is that a lot of the photos that some really religious people would maybe not agree with, if they knew the context, and because I know you, I really do know some of the context, some of those photos really are an empowering moment for some of these women, that you create an opportunity for them to be strong and equal and important. And I really appreciate that about your photography. And like, it might not agree with every individual, and I know one thing that you probably run into a lot that I'm curious about, and is when somebody brings up like the concept of you shooting a woman that is maybe not dressed like as modest as some individual would want. What do you say to somebody that mentions like the scripture that talks about not being a stumbling block for another individual when it comes to like lust or anything like that? What do you think about that? How do you make sure your photography is not a stumbling block, or what are your thoughts on the fact that in some areas it could be? I'm just curious to start a conversation about this. And the fact that I love this about the podcast is that not everybody has to agree about everything, and that disagreement doesn't have to lead to division.
Exactly.
But we can open up a conversation about it. So what are your thoughts about really kind of edgy photography?
My I guess like very brash, like what I would want to say is, all right, man, just unfollow me. My other thoughts are, hey, let's start a conversation like you're doing. Uh, tell me like explain to me why this is a stumbling block for you. Explain to me why this is making you struggle. Um, let's walk through it. Let's talk about it. And because for me, like obviously, like it's not something that's making me stumble. It's something like if some of my photography is like just recently I did a Fear of God inspired shoot. I took all of my own clothes, put them on a female model who was tall, lanky, but very petite, and so it was oversized clothes, and I did it on purpose. And the whole thought behind it was just that, like you said, empowering her and just female in general. It's a really big trend right now to put male clothes on a female and empower feminism that way instead of in a sexual way.
Wow.
There's a lot of photographers that do it well, especially in Boston. Just recently, I was listening to someone's story and she just explained it really well. And so yeah, I mean, I would just ultimately I'd say like, hey, why is this a stumbling block? Talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Like I want to understand, instead of just writing them off. Like whatever. I don't care, stuff like that. And then I guess try to explain to them the context, behind the photo, behind the shoot, what it means. Because for me, like I look at some of my photos and I think this doesn't look scandalous. This doesn't look sexual in any way. I talk to other photographers and they say the same thing. It's always people who are not photographers that I get like, oh, this isn't appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like it goes back to the like don't act like you understand the concept. Don't
Right.
act like you understand the mindset of a photographer or a model, but because you don't, it's we're expressing ourselves in a certain way, so you like get to know it, try to understand it before you just assume or attack. And yeah, so I mean, I'd say I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it does.
But
Yeah. Okay. Any we're going to start wrapping it up here. Any
Okay.
closing thoughts on creativity in the church, creativity and the church, and just some final words on your heart behind creativity and as a Christian, and what role it can play in our ministries or not play in our
Yeah.
ministries. Would love to hear.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about this. I do want to say that one, like when it comes to like photography, let's just say nude photography. For me, it's just off limits. One, I just don't see it as creative.
Right.
I think Cole Sprouse even said it, and if the star of Riverdale says it, then it's got to be true.
I love Riverdale.
Yeah. So I mean, who doesn't? He's also an amazing editorial fashion photographer, and
I didn't know that.
he
That's
had an interview, and he just decided that from the get-go, that nude photography was not going to be his thing. He wasn't going there. And he said it's unoriginal for a white straight male to shoot a naked beautiful woman. Like it's everyone does it. And they've been doing it for years. So one, like that's not me. I don't. That's my limit, especially in photography. And then I'd say just like don't strive for creativity. Don't like try and grasp the idea of creativity and like create it yourself. I guess realize that you don't have to create creativity. You know,
Wow.
It's not your job. You are creative just by being you. And when I realized that like I am creative just by being a human being, I have creativity inside me. I felt the freedom to just shoot anything I wanted, as simple or as conceptual as it could be, and I was going to find some way that it was creative, you know. And also like if you're a Christian in the photo industry, like figure out how you can bring glory to God through that. Whether that's, you know, if your Instagram has nothing to do with God at all, then I would say incorporate that. You know, I just recently I've tried to incorporate Christianity and God into some of my photos throughout my feed. So if you scroll through every now and then, you'll see a photo of Billy Graham, or you'll see a photo of my pastor, or of church. And I've just decided that because of the platform I've built over the last year with people in the secular world, then now if I just every now and then throw out something about church, they'll want to be interested in it. And then also like on your shoots, like make sure that you're living with all the integrity in the world. You know, live a life of honor, live a life of integrity. Don't, be, just as blunt as possible, a sketchy scumbag. Like don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. And also just like at the end of the day too, like when you get pushback for your creativity, like just know it's gonna come. Like if you're in the church and you are a male who mostly shoots females, or if you are a female who mostly shoots males, which that's a big dynamic to shoot the opposite sex of yourself.
Right.
Like you're gonna get pushback from the people in church who don't understand it. Have conversations with those people, and at the end of the day, like you just gotta understand that not everyone's gonna get it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna understand, but at least you know that at the end of the day, you honored God on that set. You honored that person. You gave glory to your Creator in your creativity.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's really the essence of what I do, is just that I get to go and hang out with people that aren't in church, and I get to pastor them without them even realizing it.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome, man. I think one of my biggest takeaways from this is that you simply being creative with no strings attached to that is worship to God, and God has created you to create, and that you just doing you, and you taking photos or making films or designing fashion or whatever it is, you doing that and doing it as best as you can and doing it excellently,
that's a big thing,
is worship to God and is honoring to God. And then, I mean, even like the connection with people there's so many layers to that people may not realize. John, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast,
thank
man.
you.
You're a great friend to me, and a brilliant creative, brilliant photographer. I encourage all of you, give John a follow. Give Portrait Birmingham, Portrait Boston a follow. I'll put all the information in the show notes, as well as hopefully on the screen here. Thank you guys, our faithful listeners, for tuning in for Church Kids Sessions episode number 2. This episode is titled Creativity in the Church, and I hope that you'll share, rate, subscribe this if you're listening on YouTube and watching on YouTube, or listening on the podcast or Podbean. make sure you subscribe. Stay in tune with this and help get the word out.
Exactly.
And visit us at churchkids.net. View the blogs there. We would love to get your feedback there. And don't be afraid to join the conversation. If you want to go to churchkids.net, just click on Join the Conversation. Leave us a note there. We would love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear what you want to get to talking about. We love you guys so much. Thank you for listening to Church Kids Sessions, episode number 2, Creativity in the Church. Thanks again to John.
We out.
And have a good one, guys. We'll see you again soon. Episodes on the first Monday, sessions on the third Monday. Thanks.